All right, folks, how we doing? My name is Richard from Crooked Smile Collectibles. I'm here with AJ Herrera of Forbidden Panel. We are offering you your first episode of our collaborative PanelCast. Normally, AJ does PanelCast on his through his company, which is at.
ForbiddenPanel.com.
So you be sure to follow them and listen to the PanelCast. He does things like movie reviews.
Movie reviews, comic book reviews, video game reviews, geek reviews, stuff like that. So now I'm together with, Richard's always been FP one way or another. And now that he's got his store going on and stuff, we decided to make a collaborative podcast and get together and talk about toys.
Yeah, so we're going to do, also here we'll do a lot of the same stuff, movie reviews, toy reviews. He does more current movies on his stuff, like new stuff that comes out. We might do like a review, like the new Rad's coming out again.
Right.
So we may watch that again and review it. So we may do like older stuff here. And we're going to talk more about toys, which they don't really do on his panelcasts. So, but still, it's a collaborative effort between the two companies. We've always we've known each other since the fourth grade.
Fourth, fifth, after 40 years, they all just blend into one,
So this is our first actual podcast together of the two companies together. So,
right. And before we begin, I wanted to give a quick shout out. I wanted to mention the shirt. In case you can't see it, it says Bill the Vampire. Bill the Vampire is an awesome book series written by Rick Gualtieri. You can find on Amazon. It's about a fat, lonely, geeky dude such as ourselves who gets turned into a vampire and realizes he doesn't get skinny or beautiful. He stays fat, geeky, and dorky. And continues to play D&D with this new coven. So
that's awesome.
It's great. And in fact, it gets to a point where it's so geeky that his best friend, who just happens to have a G1 Optimus Prime, much like this one, but unlike this one, that he loves his G1 Optimus Prime so much that it becomes a holy item in his collection. And so Bill the Vampire can't touch it, because when it does, it burns his skin. That's how awesome this series is. So if you haven't had a chance, go check it out. It's called Bill the Vampire. It's on Amazon by Rick Gualtieri. It's awesome. And I just want to give it a quick shout out. So anyway, moving on.
That's part of the subject, not Bill the Vampire, though we did
Right.
want to give the shout out. Part of what we are going to discuss today is why we collect, what we collected as children onto what we collect now, and basically the evolution of the stuff we do collect.
And why we collect what we do now as opposed to what we collected as children. So I guess we should start. Well, first, there was something I wanted to bring up to Richard earlier that we didn't get to discuss yet. Yesterday, Richard brought up a good point, something he and I have started doing recently, and that's called the question. So the question yesterday was, what was our favorite time-traveling movie? And we had to put a little bit of restrictions on it, where it had to actually involve traveling to and from a point in time, be it the past or the future.
So it can't be something like Captain America where he gets frozen and then awakens in a different time.
Right.
It has to be to and fro.
Right, yes. It can't be like the Terminator where they all get sent to the past. It has to actually be to and back and forth. So we both agreed that Back to the Future was probably the number one on our list of time travel movies. However, I'm now here to refashion that question into another question. What is the best time traveling TV series? And you can't say Voyagers.
Why?
Because I knew that was going to be your go-to.
It's literally time travel. Like, why?
Because that's all he's been watching lately is Voyagers.
I love Voyagers. Favorite. I mean,
you don't have to answer now. It could be a question and we answer at the end of the show.
I'm gonna have to think about that.
But it's just food for thought. So, Richard, let's get this started. What was the first toy you started collecting?
The first thing I would have been collecting would have been The Mego, they were called pocket figures. So I don't actually believe they had really any mobility at all. They were probably about 3 3/4, maybe a little bit bigger. Um, I was really into Batman, especially when I was a kid. So they had Batman, Super. Like back then, Mego licensed everybody.
Right.
Mego was the only action figures we got as kids, very early on, and then I went from that to the 6-inch Mego figures, and then what really got me going was what got a lot of us into collecting was Star Wars.
Now Mego, the first Megos I got were Jason and the Starfighters, as well as the Marvel line that they did. Now Megos, the ones I collected, they were about 6 inches.
Yeah.
And what you thought was like the outfit or costumes was exactly that. It was just an outfit, and you would unbutton the top button and take the clothes off, and they'd be like pretty much naked underneath. And so it was weird because I had the thing.
Oh yeah.
He took his rocks off, and he's like got a human body underneath.
Yeah, exactly.
That was weird.
If either one of us was a little taller, I actually have a couple of Migos up there on the top shelf.
See how
we'd have to climb.
On camera, we're huge.
So what was the first thing that you were but what really got you into collecting though? Not just your first toy you remember really.
Star Wars.
I
mean, it's a toss-up. It's between the, the old Spider-Man on the line.
Yeah.
Sliding down that, there's that and
remember the Rage in the Cage Hulk that had the little pump and he would.
Yeah. I had there was Star Wars.
Those were still Mego, right?
And I think so. And I also had the Mean Green Machine was what we called it.
Yeah, the old
the tricycle. And you pulled on the handbrake and you powered out.
Yeah, I remember they had the Dukes of Hazzard one like that.
Yeah. So I started collecting Star Wars figures, especially. We were both very young back when the original Star Wars first came out. We were like 4 or 5 years old when it came out, and immediately hooked. And so I went to the store, bought all the Star Wars toys I could buy, action figures all over the place. Especially when
back when you can get an action figure for like $1.75.
Especially when Empire Strikes Back came back, because we had gotten a little bit older at that point. We understood a little bit more, and the story was more impactful. I think that's why, for us, Empire was the best out of the trilogies, because that's when we truly understood the adult motivations behind everything, and plus the Dagobah playset was awesome.
Yeah. Everything, the playsets, the scale, the AT-AT, how huge that AT-AT was.
Yeah, the AT-AT came out, the Millennium Falcon came out, the personnel carrier, the personal spaceship carrier. I had one of those, and the handle was a little miniature of the spaceship itself. They went up like a big tube that was going to get. Yeah.
Those were some of the best toys of our childhood. Obviously.
That was also when the Vader bust came out. That opened up into a figure holder, and you could put all the different Star Wars action figures in there and close it up. Yeah, you got it over there.
It's over there in the corner.
Yeah, so that's when that
there was the Vader one and the C-3PO one.
Yeah, and
the little action figure
those
carriers.
all came out around the same time, and they were awesome.
Well, yeah, if you remember when Star Wars first came out, I don't know if you were part of that original 12 group that got the stupid little card.
No, I didn't.
Pre-release, yeah.
I didn't. No, yeah. I wanted
to. That thing is worth so much money, just that card alone.
Right.
Like, oh my God. But yeah, I got that. My parents had ordered me from TG and Y back in the day. Those figures, and man, like when I finally got them, they were the greatest thing in the world. Like, I remember with the card, like because as kids, we didn't have like what people have nowadays. Like how easy, how many toys are out there. It was pretty limited.
Right.
I remember cutting out the actual pictures of the figures that they had on them and using them like action figures. Yeah. Like I would use the little stands from, I don't know, some board game, and I would use those to play with. Yeah, until we eventually got them,
Well, it's
also part of growing up a little poor.
back then, we also didn't have the internet, so we catalog ordered everything. So, and also on the back of comic books, we would have to clip out all those stuff to order stuff like that. So when places like Fedco and TG and Y and all that stuff would show this stuff in the catalog. We couldn't exactly go down and pick them up. We had to mail order them. So here we are waiting for months, sometimes even a year or so, before they would show up in the mail. And then, oh, holy crap, look what we got.
Oh, yeah.
And in the meantime, we're watching all our friends who had already pre-ordered it, had playing with it, and we're just sitting there like, hey, what, Nate?
Or even just that. I remember as a kid, one of my favorite things was waiting for that Christmas catalog to come out.
Mm-hmm.
The Sears catalog or the J.C. Penney's catalog, and just sitting there
or the mall catalog,
looking at the toy section. Actually, till I still have it somewhere, but up until my grandmother passed away, in her living room she had like a little desk or whatever, sewing desk.
Mm-hmm.
And in one of those drawers there was a Christmas catalog which had been there since it was probably 1980, and she kept it that entire, like, literally, like, she passed away probably in 92, somewhere right there. And she had kept that catalog in there, because every time I would, even when I was older, even as a teenager, I would go there to visit or because I used to take care of my grandfather, and I would look at that catalog. It was something, and I still have it. Like, that catalog's actually in storage. I still own it to this day.
Nice.
But it's a Sears catalog from it's either 80 or 81.
And that catalog alone, is worth something. Not just,
yeah, probably.
Not just to you, but just out there.
Yeah.
And, those were the old days. See, now you're getting old when you're like, those were the old days.
So, continuing on, what do you still collect?
Gone are the days of Transformers and G.I. Joes and all that stuff. Now I'm Transformers. I stick to Transformers, and I've even had to weed down that collection to where I only collect certain things like combiners and some of the classic characters I like Optimus Prime and Soundwave and Jetfire. Jetfire is probably one of my all-time favorite Transformers characters. But other than that, it's one of the weird things. Once you start, and maybe I'm just the only one, but I create characters now on a daily basis. I write a comic book series and stuff like that. And so now that I do that, I'm more interested in the universe that I'm creating than playing in other people's universes. So
yeah,
I love Transformers, and I'll always collect them, but I can't imagine collecting anything else that isn't something I've created already, because I'm having too much fun with that world,
I do very similar things when it comes in. It's some of the advice which is another thing we will talk about in the future. When I do customs, I always tell people to come up with a story in your head of why you're making this cut, even if it's an already established character,
right? An origin story or something.
Yeah. But regardless, you're doing your own version of that character. And I always tell people to come up with your a story of it for it while you're creating it. It makes it it makes it funner, first of all, and it drives you to continue and to go forward with it.
Right.
And I didn't like the classified Joes when they came out. I didn't like the way they were painted. So I repainted them to be more modern colors, and that developed into making different teams. Mm-hmm. Like I did them in the current desert camo style or desert style colors, and it developed into me making an entire desert team, and then I made like a Night Force team, which is like a silent jungle operations in the evening. So I eventually made my own.
So you're still playing with the toys?
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, in your own head.
Yeah, in my head.
You're doing this, but in your head, you're like, pew, 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 pew.
Yeah,
you're
pretty
still
much.
Getting down. You're like, oh, he's got this day. Look, he just got shot here. And oh, look, he's doing that.
That's the extent that I still play with toys,
awesome.
But yeah.
I do the same thing when
other than posing.
With the Transformers, other than cursing out, like my eyesight and my arthritis, because I'm like, I can't. But I'm still, in my head, I'm like, oh, I'm still making the noise of the Transformers. Right. I'm still like, oh, look, he's bullet time Optimus as he's dodging this and putting it all together and stuff like. Because to me, it's still at this point in my life, as you know, there's so much going on in real life. And when I sit down these Transformers and my toys, my mind goes completely blank, and I'm just all focused on these figures and their stories and what transforming them is making me do to them, and the poses and all that stuff. And I forget about all the drama and everything else going on in the world today with my life and everything else is going on. All I care about is why Frenzy and Rumble are painted the same color in this episode. You know, or how I'm going to get this guy over, or do I need a smudger, or any of that stuff. You know, what's the story today?
So it's an escape.
Right, it's an absolute escape. And the same way I realized it was when we were growing up, because and not to get into like too deep of a personal diatribe or anything like that, but you know, we had a rough upbringing as well, and so we would go and play with our toys and figures to get away from what was happening in the real life. You know, the hardships that our parents were dealing with and how they were bringing home from work. So for us, this was how we got away from that, and so we just continue it on into our adulthood. That's how I feel I deal with it. I don't know about everybody else. For them,
I'm sure people collect for multitude of reasons, which is something we will actually have toy therapy sessions. Yeah. So, but in the fact that you still collect Transformers, like how has Transformers in general evolved?
Well, we have examples here today.
Really?
Imagine that. Examples.
It's almost like that was a segue.
So as we brought up before, Transformers have changed in a lot of ways. Initially, they were just designed so that they looked like the vehicles, or what's known as the alternate modes that they were in. So like this is Optimus Prime, G1 Optimus Prime, original. And his transformation when he turns into Optimus Prime is so blocky and big that it wasn't really too exciting to see in robot mode. The same with and please don't shoot me or get me in trouble. Yeah. G1 Megatron right here.
This is a toy, not an actual pew pew.
Toy. It does. Didn't the original shoot pellets, if I remember right? I thought they shot the red pellets.
No, that was a third party one that's eventually.
That's right. And before you like purists get all freaked out, we do have all the attachments that come with it. Mm-hmm. But when he would transform, like this piece right here would be his crotch, and you would have to pew pew his crotch.
You have to flick his trigger.
You know.
This is a family-friendly show.
Right.
Trigger.
Right. Trigger. He would become Soprano when you were playing with him. And so nowadays...
And also in robot mode had the oddest shape.
Right. It just was confusing.
Yeah.
And so nowadays you have them... First off, they vary in sizes. Vroom, vroom. Vroom, vroom. But not only is there careful, meticulous care into making sure it looks like a genuine truck, Peterbilt truck coming down the road, but when transformed, it looks amazing. Like it looks like a robot, a complete robot in full form, and it doesn't have, unless you're going for like what's known as the Bayverse Transformers. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have like the jutting parts and the awkwardness that it used to have. Now it's a smooth transition. In looks between robot mode and alt mode, and so that's how things have changed. So that was one example. I'm going to show you a few more examples here. Now, I don't know about you, but the Grail item back in the day, in the heyday of Transformers collecting, was Starscream. Jetfire. I almost had to slap my own hand. Now,
man, they could at least Freddy could at least dusted that off.
I know. What good is having a manservant if he's not serving the madness? Anyway, so this is G1 Jetfire. Now, the reason why this was such a hot item was because of the 99.9% similarity it drew to the Macross Robotech figures that came out back in the 80s. And so both, not only in the animation form, but in the toy form, they were both very, 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 very extremely similar.
They're identical.
With only one difference in that
The scale.
the scale and the skull and crossbones is missing from the cockpit, which is what Robotech had in the Rick Hunter series version.
Should have had Freddie bring that one out too.
Right. Well, apparently Freddy is not perfect.
I have the Skull Squadron. And there was also, if you recall, when these were first put out, they had right here on the wing, they actually had the Macross logo.
That's right. That's right. Now, here's Jetfire today.
Slightly larger.
Just a wee bit, and with a bigger backpack.
Wow, that is insane.
Um,
Like a flying tank.
it is like a flying tank. And if I had the 3 hours on the show to transform this, I would show you just how articulate and beautiful and smooth the transform figure is.
Yeah, that's pretty massive.
As it is, like, hold up the other one in comparison. See, as you can tell, this one took his spinach today.
Yeah.
Now, again, for all you purists get all cranky, there's the power booster armor for the original Jetfire. Okay,
He
so
is complete.
we have it all.
Yeah, he is complete.
So this is the newer version of Jetfire, which just came out with the Siege line. And I love this Jetfire. This is awesome. And it's, look at the wings are, I mean, they bend everywhere. I don't have any hands to show you, but. And another one that's my favorite is.
They all seem to be your favorite.
Yeah, well, you know what? I had a lot of favorites as a kid. This one. Now, just for the record, because of life's turmoils and twists for me, all these G1s I don't have anymore. These are all his. Available at the KSK website. Some of them, not all of them.
Some of them are available, yes.
Not all of them.
Not all of them, because some of them are my favorites.
Right. Boom.
For instance, this is not for sale.
Shockwave.
No batteries in it. It does work. There are just no batteries.
Well, that's disappointing. Now, this also has kind of one of the problems that the original Megatron had, and that these came out as weapons, right? Weapons that fit in human hands, but they wouldn't fit into the hands of the Transformers that were going to use them. So eventually, these weapons were phased out. Not to mention kids and weapons in their hands, you know.
It's probably a bad thing.
Right.
Plus, Megatron would transform into this form, and Starscream would use him as a weapon in the cartoon, but you couldn't do that with your toys.
Right. It wouldn't shrink small enough. Now, some of the Starscreams that are released nowadays come with a smaller version of Megatron that fits in his hand. So it's kind of cool, but it doesn't transform into a robot.
Right. The coolest, or the most unique thing about this, and something maybe not all collectors know, is this isn't the original version of this, because we got a version before, like directly from Japan.
Correct.
Strictly from Radio Shack, right?
Right. That was a different color too. Was it darker
Black.
version?
Black or dark gray.
Yeah.
Laser Man.
So this is what their solution of it is. They changed it into a spaceship.
But it still kind of looks like a gun.
Which still kind of looks like an upside down gun. Pew pew pew. But it's safer for the kids, and it's a lot more fun, and it still kind of has that Robotech feel to it.
Yeah.
You know,
it looks very similar to the original. They kept
a lot of the similarities there, so it still maintains that Shockwave feel, like you still think it's him. But there it is.
That one's a really cool one.
Yeah. Keep your eyes on your toys.
I actually kind of like that.
Keep your eyes off my toys. Just like we were in school. Here's another one. I've always been kind of obsessed with this. This one is mine. This is the G1 Soundwave, but this one is the re-release that they recently put out. Not the original one, and unfortunately not the MP3 version of it. They did
MP3 version?
Yeah, they made one of these that was an MP3 version of it, where it still had the cassettes and everything that would pop out, but you would pair it, or you would sync MP3s into it, and it would hold like 128 gigs or something like that, and play music out of it, and it was pretty awesome. I'm like, they need a Bluetooth version of it.
There's Laser Man.
There's Laser Man.
I thought he brought him. I wasn't sure.
He's very sad today.
Well, he's in a box. Yeah, he's, as you can see, they're literally identical except for color.
Yeah.
There's. But this was something that you got at Radio Shack.
Yeah.
Tandy?
Tandy was the Radio Shack brand for a while.
Yeah, this is it's still functional.
Now, while this isn't the current version of Soundwave, it is one of the cooler ones. This is what's known as the Shattered Glass version. I like it. The only thing that's really weird for me is, let's see if I can do it real quick. No. The only thing that's weird for me is this version of it. Soundwave wears a headband. as if he's sweating to the oldies. Which is awkward. But
he's been working out.
Yeah. And then, finally, from my personal collection, Blaster, which was Soundwave's counterpart on the Autobot side. This one was really cool. It also ejected and had cassette tapes that came with it.
Oh yeah, each one of these had cassette tapes that would transform into these little
critters.
Yeah, little critters. Like you either had animals or
which one was your
robots.
favorite?
Laserbeak.
It was always a toss-up. There's two: Laserbeak and Ravage. Those were always the hot commodity items.
Rumble was pretty cool.
I liked the brothers, but Ravage was always my favorite. So that was the original version. Here's the newer one. This one is from a third-party collector.
Oh, those colors are awesome.
Yeah, and this is metallic, actually. A lot of the parts on here are metallic, and this one's really nice. And they did the same thing as they did with Soundwave in that they made an MP3 version of it. And they also made one that's a Bluetooth speaker, too.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty awesome. And it's just another version of it. I like it because of the highlighted black colors that came out with it.
Yeah, that looks really good. It makes it pops.
Yeah. So yeah, that's when I'm not collecting combiners, which I was gonna bring, but no.
That would take up most of the space.
Right. I was gonna bring
some huge.
Look, I have over 300 Transformers, and which is a lot for me. I'm sure it's not a lot for mostly hardcore collectors, but they keep my they help me keep my sanity.
That's the thing is the toy collecting is where before it was something much like comic book readers or people that were really into like D&D or role playing games in general. Mm-hmm. Everybody says D&D, but it's general role playing games. It's something that a lot of people hid. Like I talked about, like there were people like when we were kids, they were made fun of or picked on because they were into certain things. Right. I mean that our group really didn't have that problem because most of us could fight. So
we didn't have a choice. We grew up in a neighborhood where if you didn't fight, you were dead. So,
but like a lot of kids grew up and they were bullied because of it or picked on because they were into comic books or they were into, Universal movie monsters. Like that's crazy that if you were into horror, you were considered a weirdo back then.
Right. Skateboarding, man. I got picked on for
exactly. Skateboarding, like all this stuff that we used to do as kids, which has all come full circle and it's all mainstream. It's all
super popular now.
Which is it's awesome because
I mean, obviously not popular enough to keep a store open.
That's the economy. But the thing is so many people have especially during the pandemic, they really dove into collecting. Like I personally did too because we had nothing else to do. Right. You sit there and you're looking at your toys because you can't go out, you can't go anywhere. And everything,
we all ran out of TV shows to watch.
And everything back then, like the prices were super cheap. They've jumped up. Things have skyrocketed. So, now they're starting to plateau and come down a lot. Right. There's a lot of things that were way up there. GI Joes were ridiculous, and I'm a big Joe collector. Now they're more reasonable. because a lot of the things that's happening is people that are our age are actually kind of getting out of collecting
Right.
because we're getting older, and it's just like you enjoy what you have. So the people that are really getting into collecting were the kids that grew up in the 90s. So things like Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles, stuff like that are becoming your more popular items now. So it's like it ebbs and flows with collecting. Same thing with comic books. Like
Plus, a lot of times when a movie comes out based on that, like for example the Turtles, at first it was great. You know, the popularity of it grew and everything was wonderful. But then people realized how bad the movies were, and then they used they like took it on the toys. You know, they'd go to the toy store and they'd see, oh man, that movie was so bad. I'm not going to buy this toy based on that movie. You know, I'll move on to something else. And so the toy line would suffer in that aspect.
yeah, there's it's a crazy world that we live in now that so many of these things have become, not only are they pop culture, but they it dictates a lot. Like comic book movies dictate the health of the movie industry in general. Comic book movies are probably your highest grossing films right currently.
Right.
Or
At least the highest amount
they're with
being
it,
spent on
right? Yeah,
to make. Yeah.
they're definitely up there, you know, and like, but we're also seeing a resurgence of things like horror movies, which I wish they would go back to more traditional horror movies than jump scare movies, but that's personal opinion.
And CGI schlock is getting on my nerves.
Yeah, well, that's
I want real blood.
that's not those kind of movies.
Oh, sorry.
But like similar things is things have evolved, and Transformers are popular again. GI Joes with the latest line have become popular again.
Right.
Turtles are popular again with that last movie that came out, the cartoon. So as things get real, like Star Wars got, you know, with all the new Star Wars movies, Star Wars got a whole new life all over again, as you can tell. I'm a Star Wars fan, you know. That one too. But I mean, there's Star Wars posters behind us, well, along with the lightsabers.
It's not a competition.
It might be, but things and even like, I mean, even professional wrestling has seen a popularity resurgence. Like there's a lot of things that people would be 10 years ago would be laughed at that are popular, like all over again.
Or we had a wrestler come out dressed as Buzz Lightyear, you know, and wearing that in their costume. They come out dressed as comic book and Transformers characters all the time.
Yeah, back you know, in the Indies, Finn Balor used to dress up as like different versions of symbiotes and
Venom and Spider-Man, all that stuff.
Yeah. And there's a crossover because a lot of people, and especially like you'll see little hints of things like video games or even tabletop games like Warhammer. You'll see little teasers from Warhammer on people like all over the place. Not just like in geek related stuff, but you'll see it in like professional wrestling. You find out like actors are into playing D&D. There's actors that have groups playing D&D. So and then it's been mentioned in shows that were popular, things like Big Bang Theory and stuff like that.
Shows like Big Bang Theory have become popular in mainstream. You know, the geekdom shall inherit the earth at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just it's the fact that I don't think that anything should be off limits for the imagination. If it keeps people involved and having fun, you know, like I've always preached to kids should be allowed to play with toys. Kids should want to play with toys because your imagination is endless with toys.
Mm-hmm.
So, which is always great. I mean, I love video games. You know, eventually, when this is all cleared up, this is my man cave. It's my game room. We will do a full tour of it. It is pretty packed with stuff. It is kind of ridiculous.
It's empty and it's hollow. It's a hollow shell of a room.
No, you're just a hollow shell of a person.
So, reflecting. Whatever. But yeah, no. For me, it has always been about getting back to the source material too. Like all this stuff is all wonderful and great, but if you're gonna watch movies, if you're gonna watch Battle for the Planet of the Apes this next weekend coming out, do yourself a favor. Pick up the original book. Read what they're based off of afterwards. and then just to let your imagination flow from there.
But that's one thing is like with some depending on the fan, some people don't know that things are books to begin with, and they
Right.
find out, and then it brings new people to the material. Like that, similar that happened with. There were so many people that didn't know Lord of the Rings was a book series and had never heard of The Hobbit before the movie.
Like I always thought I was elite because I had read the Silmarillion when I was like in the 7th grade.
Yeah.
And even now people don't know what the Silmarillion is, so I still feel elite. But they show it in the movie. But anyway, that's just me. Silmarillion.
Well, we're also just old, so
Right.
there's that. I mean, when we were in school, Lord of the Rings was required reading. You would go to summer, you'd have a list that you would get credit for to read certain books. And
Lord of the Rings. Algernon, Charlotte's Web, Animal Farm, all that stuff.
I don't know why they had kids read Animal Farm.
Right? Why are we in 5th grade reading Animal Farm? This makes no sense.
Yeah, that's. Ooh.
Because it has a pig that talks. Gotcha.
If you've never read Animal Farm, wow.
We're living it. Anyway.
Yeah, family friendly. So, that actually pretty much is what we wanted to cover for our first episode. We are going to talk a little bit about what we have, our ideas we have going forth. One thing we are going to do is we do have a few guests that I want to bring in. One of a friend of the stores, a friend of our companies is a guy named by the name of Mike the Hunter, who you can look him up on YouTube. Does some amazing play motion movies. Also does some really cool videos. Awesome dude. Awesome toy hunter, really cool.
He takes playing with toys to the next level, and it's fantastic.
Yeah. So and then we have another buddy of ours, Joel, who helps when I do customization classes. He hosts that with me. We're going to get into.
He does some artwork for us on Forbidden Panel side. April 15th, he and I are releasing a print on the website that he and I collaborated and worked on together. So you'll be able to see that there, and we'll have him over here on the show as well to talk. He's a hardcore Joe collector and toy collector.
He's a hardcore, and he collects some pretty obscure stuff. So.
Yeah, you can check out his artwork, fictionalstudios.com, I think.
Yeah, and he's also on Instagram, and Joel does some amazing stuff, and he's really into the customization. So him and I do, like I said, we host customization classes, which we'll get into those too, and eventually be hosting them when we find a venue to do it. So we have those coming up. Also we have what we had talked about earlier would be the toy therapy sessions, where we'll just kind of break down of like why toys are a form of therapy.
Yeah, and we'll also be doing showcasing. Like I'll go through some of the transformations. I'll be transforming some of these figures actually on camera, showing you the difficulties behind it and why they're therapy for me and what it does. And also why I have arthritis. And why my glasses will suddenly be getting thicker throughout the episodes.
So before we leave you, I guess we have to answer the question.
Sure. What's your TV show?
Voyagers.
Cheating. That's cheating. That's totally cheating.
If it's not Voyagers, it's Quantum Leap.
Obviously.
Those Quantum Leap to me, anytime
the original. The Scott Bakula version, not the new version.
I've never seen the new version, so I don't know. Well, I saw like a snippet of it, but due to your reviews, I haven't watched it. Do you on Forbidden Panel on your normal PanelCast? Do you do TV reviews too, or just
not normally because it depends on the show. Like I want to review eventually X-Men '97 and some of the other. We do mostly limited series and stuff, but we will do it here, obviously.
Yeah.
Whenever we can. So there.
Yeah. So what's your answer?
My answer? It's a toss. It'll always be Quantum Leap, man. Honestly, between Sliders and Quantum Leap.
Sliders was a good one, but Voyagers, I'm telling you, like people don't. I know I've talked about.
People sleep on Voyagers. But that's only because it came out. It was 13 episodes.
Yeah,
13 episodes in the 80s, and then the main character accidentally, purposely shot himself in the head and killed himself and killed the whole show.
Yeah.
With a prop gun.
Yeah.
And so because of that, the show immediately got canceled and forgotten. It itself time traveled into obscurity.
It's an amazing show. Very few people, or actually I won't say very few, because there is a following for it. But it's one that a lot of people nowadays have never heard of. If you weren't around, you don't really know.
Right. Now there's another show. There's Sliders. I liked, but it was more.
Sliders always felt a little cheesy to me. I did enjoy it.
It was Buffy, time traveling
Right.
Buffy. That's what it was for me. There's a show called The Travelers on Netflix with McCormick, Michael McCormick. Whatever his name is, I can't think of it right now.
We forget stuff a lot.
A lot. Dharma and Greg. He was Greg.
I think it was Michael McCormick.
Yeah, with him in it, and that is a fantastic show. It ran 3 seasons on Netflix, phenomenal. But it will always be Quantum Leap because no matter what, it was relatable. Like everything it went through, yeah, it was kind of cheesy. Sometimes it taught you like life lessons and stuff like that. But like, I don't know, man. You just got into the role with him. Every time Sam took a leap, you leapt in with him,
Yeah.
and you felt what he felt and all the drama he had to take on with him, and you knew why. You know what I mean? So that last leap, when he sat there, and you saw that script across the screen. Dr. Samuel Beckett never left home. You know that. I mean, I got goosebumps just saying it. Like
See, that's the one thing. Like Voyagers was, though it was primetime television, it was geared towards children. So they would go and jump into very historical stuff, and then at the end they would say, "Hey, if you want to learn more about this person or when this happened, go to your local library," because we didn't have the internet.
Right.
So it was made to teach children in prime time with the very, I wouldn't say adult themes, but it was pretty. I mean, they're jumping into wars and stuff like that, and but it had that, like, as a kid, like I loved it, and it's also, I'm a big history buff, right. So I absolutely like that. I still watch it to this day, obviously. But that's one of the lost shows. There's
last week.
Yeah, literally. No, it wasn't even last week. But literally, like between that and there was another show that I absolutely love that a lot of people have never heard of called Tales of the Golden Monkey. Those are my two that I
family safe show.
I constantly bring up. Those things are just amazing shows that a lot of people have never heard of. It was a TV show that was done kind of like it was about a treasure hunter. It was very Indiana Jones kind of.
Now, would Land of the Lost qualify?
As a time travel? No, because they only went
one direction. See, this is the dilemma that the question brings up. It's a good way to hammer out all this stuff and relive all of our past and just, I don't know. It's a good
it always jumps into different, so many different things. Actually, we should do one question an episode.
Yeah,
we'll present it at the beginning.
Just as long as we only do one episode a week. I've had to answer 17 questions this week. I can't think no more. I have no opinion about anything.
Well, I mean, if we're doing other episodes in the week, they're obviously going to involve
right.
other things. So, I mean, guests or whatever. A lot of the stuff but I mean. There's a billion of them. Actually, Joel proposed a question last night.
Don't bring it on.
No,
the next episode.
that's. I won't bring that on until he's here. So.
Okay. So
because it's something he really wants to ask you particularly.
He has to answer it too. Though. That's the thing.
So that is it for this version of PanelCast. This is AJ.
Hi.
I'm Richard.
Hi.
You can see AJ at
ForbiddenPanel.com.
You can find me at Crooked Smile Art. The links are going to be in the bio. You can follow us on all platforms. If you're looking for any toys in particular, that's what we do. We sell toys. We, do our best to get you what you're looking for. So
everything.
So thank you for joining me, AJ.
Thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate you guys. If you stuck around and watched, if we have fans, great. If we're building fans, awesome. Stay classy.
words.